this is probably becoming a whole separate video from my The Last Jedi reaction. That's just my take, and I don't believe the hype that's going to be better than Empire Strikes Back, because that is still the best of the all of the Star Wars movies so far, is The Empire Strikes Back, just because of the emotional turmoil, the darkness, that little bit of hope at the end of the movie. That's just it, all around the best one. The Return of the Jedi is closely second best in my book. Again, personal opinion. That's what YouTube is about. And then Episode 4. So obviously, I like the original trilogy the best, because it's the best. It's simple, it's straightforward, it's to the point, it's just fun, and gives you that sense of wonder. And then the prequel trilogies, obviously, they had their ups and downs. I mean, I'm not oh, they're dead, they're stupid, they're the worst shit ever. I'm not on that bandwagon, but I'm also not like a huge fan of them. I like them because they flesh out the story of where Anakin came from, and all the extra stuff that they alluded to in the original trilogy. They were able to show all that, and that, I mean, I know that's kind of why, at least I believe that's why George Lucas went back and made them, because he was like, okay, I can make these other movies now, because that was his whole thing. He had this idea. He's like, all right, I want to make these movies because I like this story and I worked on it, and I want to make my movies. He said that many times. I want to make my movie. So he did. And then he had the ability to make more. And, I mean, okay. Here's my own personal take on how I think the prequels should have done. They should have taken the first 2/3 of episode 1, shorten that to about maybe 30 minutes. Kind of maybe start on Tatooine, the finding of Anakin. Screw the pod race. I mean, it was cool, it was fun to watch, but it didn't really do anything for the story at all. And then gone on to the skirmish at Naboo is kind of like the first like big actiony thing, where they, the death of Qui-Gon and all that could have been like a Empire-esque twist in the middle, like, oh shit, we killed Qui-Gon Jinn in the first movie, but halfway through. And then the ending of episode 1, I feel, should have been maybe like a growing up montage training thing that led to the beginning of the Clone Wars, or right before, like, kind of cover that 10-year gap between episodes 1 and 2 a little bit. And then from there, we would go into episode 2, and episode 2 would start a lot further along, like kind of skip the assassination stuff, and maybe kind of, again, take that, like, shorten the first, like, half of the movie into, like, 30 minutes or so. And then have the breakout of the Clone Wars and the battle in Geonosis, instead of that being, like, the climax of the movie. Have that be, like, the whole middle, and turn into, like, a montage type thing of, oh, we gotta go to war, and then they go to war, and show a little bit of Anakin and Obi-Wan going off and fighting a battle or two, and just kind of montage it up a little bit. Show some of the struggle of the war, and have, like, that be kind of the end instead of just ending like, oh, the Clone Wars are starting, end of the movie. Have it go through into the Clone, because I mean they call it Attack of the Clones, but they should have maybe called it the Clone Wars, and just maybe take some of the stuff that they actually put into the Clone Wars TV series and put it in the movie. And then episode 3 could have, I mean, episode 3 of the prequels is probably the one that I liked the best, because it was a lot more about the story. It was about the struggle of Anakin and the politics and Palpatine's manipulations and stuff. So the storyline and what happened in episode 3, I think, was fine. But it was just mainly 1 and 2 that they could have just done without the first, like I said, 2/3 of episode 1, and have episode 1 be the focus more on the finding of Anakin, the death of Qui-Gon, and the training of Anakin. That would have been episode 1. With maybe a little bit more of Palpatine's little manipulations in that, because that's an important thing. And then, like I said, episode 2 would be the Clone Wars. That's what it is. That's the Clone Wars. That should have been episode 2. It should have been a war movie. And then episode 3 is, like the end of the Clone Wars. Maybe the end of episode 2 could have been the death of Dooku, and that way Dooku could have been a central villain, more so in episode 2, but it would have just been contained to episode 2. And then, like, the climax could have been the fight on to rescue the Chancellor, and that could have been like the climax and more of that space battle at the end. Episode 3 could have started with, Obi-Wan going to find Grievous. Like, that could have been the beginning, and like the little skirmish that happened out there could have been kind of like the first action thing. And then, like the drama in the middle of the movie could have been more about Anakin's turning. And they could have gone more into the story of what was going on, the manipulation. They could have showed more of Palpatine's manipulations and that stuff. So that's my take on, the way the prequels, I believe, could have gone better. Again, I'm just a fan. I'm not an expert. So that's how I see it in my logical mind, the way that it works and the way that it could have just gone. So that's it. This is probably becoming a whole separate video from my The Last Jedi reaction.